Welcome to Dynamics of Dialogue, your one-stop shop for peace and love on the airwaves, a safe space for people of color and our allies. Join us every week as we have real dialogue with people going through real life. Your dynamic, your dialogue. Come get some.
Welcome to Dynamics of Dialogue. This is your host, Ty Davis, and I am in the studio with M. Love.
Sorry, I had to do that.
From Purple Dark Creations. Live life in the purple, all this brand. I got to tell you the significance of this because this is a lady that gave me my start in internet radio. So I think that we have, over these years, learned to exercise our ashe in the most beautiful way. Yes. And so M. Love came into my space today to help promote what I'm doing by sharing, interviewing me with her beautiful interview style and sharing some space with me so that we could accomplish some wonderful things together. So M. Love, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I'm officially hijacking DFD
Official DFD.
right now. Official DFD has been hijacked, but with love. I'm holding in my hand something I am extremely proud of. Ty has done something amazing, and she continually teaches me through not only what we say, and our conversations are so, I mean, if we could take our conversation and make them food, and it would be
fried
healthy.
Chicken.
That's
It'd
right.
Be fried chicken, dog.
We'd be nice and healthy because we feed each other.
Yes, we do.
I want to get right into activism.
Yes.
Because actually that's how I met you.
Yes.
Through activism. Yes. Shout out to Frankly Speaking.
Yes.
Another beautiful soul in the poetry community. Wow. And he reached out to me and Marilyn Swagger M and said, would you help me out? There's a sister that needs some help. And we went down and that's how we met you. So through activism. But I want to introduce our public to a word or a phrase that you introduced me to, creative activism. Yeah. So as creatives, there are other forms of activism we can take to the streets. Yeah. You know, we can march, we can write, we can call, we can text, but please talk to us about your creative activism.
So for me, creative activism, right? I started out being, as an activist, you know, really brought into that space by Trayvon Martin's story and Sandra Bland's story. And, you know, holding space for that and, you know, having my own son, that was a lot for me. It was very stressful. The stress of going, staying immersed in police brutality articles. It was really, it was destroying my health. It was affecting my health, my blood pressure, everything. It was just going off the wire. And I understand having a commitment to the people, but the people that's most important is my son and his future generations. You know, I want to be around when he has his children. I want to be a grandma one day. So, you know, that's more important to me, that I'm here for him. So I decided, let me find a different way to exercise this gift that God has given me, you know, and this passion that he's placed in me. And what better way to do it than to use my creative talents in the form of activism to empower people, you know, economically, you know, emotionally, spiritually, you know, help people heal. I can't heal anybody, but I can walk a path that leads you to a door that you can choose to open. So that's kind of, you know, how I got to that. And I actually found that was a thing. I looked it up. It's an actual thing, creative activism.
I like that because it helps me to understand, of course, activism is passion.
Yes.
It is another form of passion, and it activate you're up and speaking before you even know it. That's how passionate you are. Yeah. And for some, it's straight out anger.
Yes.
And as creatives, though, we channel that a little differently.
Yes, we do.
So first, let's deal with the business side of how you channeled your passion, your anger, your gut, raw mother instincts, not just for your son and taking care of his now and his future, but for the community. Yeah. Please talk to us about a word that you introduced me to, Boasso Black Media.
Ooh, Boasso Black Media. Boasso. I love to say that name, Boasso. That is from my Ghanaian background, one of my ancestors, one of the very first male ancestors to be born on American soil. And the story behind that is, one of my relatives did some family research to find out, trace back as far as we can to slavery. And the name of the oldest, as far as we got, was about right around maybe around the early to mid 1800s. Slavery wasn't officially abolished until 1865. So the oldest relative, the name that we found in the book, her name was Darky, Darkee.
They put that down
on the book. That was her name, Darky. And I said to myself, wow, she came from Ghana on this ship, and this is what they named her. So what I found interesting, though, equally, was in the paperwork, also in the records, was the name of her son, and that name was Boasso. And I said, wow, that means something. One thing I have learned through my studies, part of my background is I studied Africana studies as an undergraduate because it was just a part of my passion. It was calling to me. So I understand that as Africans in very many parts of this massive, on this continent, there are ways that they do things very intentionally. Mm-hmm. Whether like we talked about before, the cornrows, showing direction, all of these things, because I think we were very intentional people. So, kind of sitting with that a little bit, it would make sense that let me look and research this name, Boasso, and it turned out to be the name of a town in Ghana. And it just resonated and only made sense that was a message. She named him for where she came from. So that was powerful to me because the Middle Passage, I've been, fascinated with this understanding of who we are and identity as part of, for me, as a multicultural American. I'm Jamaican American. My dad, his mother is Jamaican, and that whole side of the family, these are messages, these are stories that we learned about our pride and our Blackness. Mm-hmm. Learned about how the importance of our identity. On that side of my family, there was no understanding. I got no messages about being less than because I'm Black. There was no sense of being less than economically or otherwise. The full equals, they kind of spit on the idea of racism, where I got different messages on the other side. So for me, this connected me. This story about Boasso connected me to something internal. And it made me feel like, what better way to pay homage to my ancestors and to the message that she's sending me, because this is communication.
Right.
That was a communication from her moving forward to her future generations. So how else could I honor that other than to create a space for us to connect and heal and grow, with not just amongst ourselves as Africans in the diaspora, but for all people who hold space for us,
right?
And the journey that we have.
And that's what I appreciated about you as well. As I said, you blend the artistic, creative side of you very well with the business side of you, because in Western society, the two is exclusive. Most people, if they're going to do business, they start with what they know, which is their community, and they start from there. But also being a creative, we recognize and live like we are everything.
Everything, yeah.
And so tell me how Boasso can be everything for our community.
I think the core of our everything is our identity, our spirituality. I think that's where it starts. Mm-hmm. Because for me, Boasso, the understanding of this message being sent to me from an enslaved ancestor from Ghana, it reminds me of the concept of Sankofa, to go back and get it. What better way could we show up for the community other than to acknowledge the traumas that we have experienced, the multiple traumas, particularly for those of us in the Black community, African American community, the multiple traumas growing up. It's like being in captivity. Mm-hmm. So, part of my belief system, as I've become more aware, I started studying principles of Ifa, and it makes me more aware of my spirituality. When you awaken the spirit and the soul, is when the soul has an opportunity to come home. It's kind of like the concept of soul retrieval. I feel like for us, we're so numb. It's not that we just don't care what happens to us, that we don't care to vote. We don't care about all of these things. We're so overwhelmed. We as a people, we numb ourselves down. And there's a piece of our soul that just escapes because it's just trauma. How can you maintain your sense of humanity when you're living under the traumatic system that you haven't had the power to change? And it's just hitting you one after the other from all of these different angles, from children being sexually abused at home, to going to school, to being bullied, to encountering racism, to dealing with police, all growing up, the adultification of children. There are no safe spaces for us. Right. So how does the soul deal with that? It flees.
It does. We spoke about that separating. And I feel strongly, as you do, that the urge for people to reconnect is happening.
Yes.
More and more people are reaching out and finding themselves. Yes. And all these things get revealed through our conversations. Yes, we talk. So we talk long enough where we find that sweet spot. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I appreciate about you as well. Talk to me a moment about, we alluded to it, you are a mother of a Black man. And you have to go to sleep at night knowing that he's out there. So your passionate activism also, you have to, because of the position you hold. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Shout out to Omari. I love you, son. Omari the engineer, Juice Man, aka Most High. I hold space for him. I remember being young. My household was male dominant. So I've always had a lot of compassion for this Black experience that our men go through. We talk about the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. I dealt with that as a child. My oldest brother, in and out of jail. I remember he was in Rikers Island. And that's why, seeing When They See Us was very hard for me. And so I fast forward that to my son. I knew by the time I was a teenager, I remember thinking to myself, I didn't want, my God, please, don't let me have a boy. Don't let me bring a Black boy in this world. But sure enough, by the time I was in college, here he came, this beautiful brown child of mine. And so it has been difficult to watch him grow up in a system where I have had to watch this power, this dark authority take over him and just crack his little soul. I attack his little soul from the time he was in the 4th grade on. And just the onslaught, through the school system and the police department was difficult. So holding that space is hard. He's 27 now. He's an adult. He's a grown man. So I can't protect him. Mm-hmm. But what I can do is I can continue to move forward and hold that experience. I may not be able to impact what happened to him in the past, but I can help somebody else's child. I can create space for another Black boy, for another Black girl, another Latino boy, another Latino, all of us together that are in this situation. It's not even that our struggles are so much more important than anybody else. They may look different, but we are all in this pot together struggling. So if I can help somebody else, then that gives me peace with, kind of knowing some of the battles that my son has had to deal with.
Yes. And it's incredibly difficult to watch. And the thing about it is, it's all of us, but at the same time, Black women have always been the protector.
Yes.
Because we hold space differently.
Yes, we do.
Than they do. Our claws kind of come out under duress, but we do have to back off and we be soft, we be mom, but they always have to be hard. And we're always running
into retreat.
Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing that out, and holding space for your son and for all men, and having that conversation with me. Thank you. And I said, I acknowledge how hard that must be. Thankfully, my lawns are dust bunnies.
Oh, stop
I'm
it!
very grateful for that.
Stop it! That's why I just love you so much. She is so funny. She is so funny.
Oh, Lord, I don't know how y'all do it. Let's talk Mind Funk times 21.
Yes,
please.
That's
explain.
My baby. Mind Funk times 21. So there is a story behind this book. I originally published it in 2011, and I wrote the book Mind Funk times 21 is what is going on in my head, this funk inside my mind, and it was times 21 because I originally said, I don't know, I said, let me call it Mind Funk times 21, put 21 poems in there. It was a very small book, but I got it done, and I wanted to publish it, and I just needed to do it. And then when I got there, I was like, I don't know what to do with it. And eventually I didn't really promote it because initially I was telling my story, but I hadn't begun my journey to healing yet, and I hadn't spent time really getting in touch with my intention behind it. So I still had quite a bit of shame. I won't even say a little bit. I had a lot in that space, but I knew it was important, So here it is. Through the blessings that the universe has brought me, I've gotten to this place of healing, and I realized why. And I was able to articulate why this is important, why I needed to shape this in the way that I did and deliver it so that other people could see themselves. There's lots of sayings now. There's so many of us that are in this spiritual awakening journey, and there's an acknowledgement that we can only meet people as deeply as they've met themselves.
Yes.
I wrote this book so I can help other people meet themselves a little bit more deeply.
Let me backtrack. There is a poem by Audre Lorde that we wanted to preface this conversation.
Yeah.
That you said was somewhat of an inspiration for you.
Audre Lorde has been an inspiration for me. Two women. Several women, but particular Audre Lorde, Ntozake Shange, Sonia Sanchez, Nikki Giovanni. These are my influences. And
Toni Morrison.
Yes.
You have the bluntness, the straight to the point of Toni Morrison.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
She cut you. I want to meet her, but I want to throw my hand over there for a handshake. I'm scared. That's how.
If I get a finger back.
But you have that as well, but we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
Thank you. There's a quote by Audre Lorde. What really drives me is it says, I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. And that's Audre Lorde. That's what this is about. That's what Heals with Her Pen is about. The whole purpose of why I created this space, just to talk about this. We need to be free. All women. Domestic violence is the number one killer of women all around the world. In the United States, domestic violence is the number one killer of Black women. This awakening of mine just seems to come with this. I look around and I have this, I see this, I just see it everywhere. The trauma is everywhere.
It is.
It's killing us on multiple levels. With it, whether it's internally with our health, whether it's what's fueling our mates and our spouses that are injuring us sometimes fatally. Trauma that it's unresolved, that they're and there's so many levels of it to adulthood for us as men and women. It just became immensely important that I do something.
And not only are you an ally simply by being born into the trauma of being Black in America, but now we start to talk of the mental health journey.
Yes.
To understanding, to recovery.
Yes.
And how that impacts this book.
Well, and see, here's the thing. I'll take this because it makes me itch a little bit. But I'll say, here's the thing. Now, this is where it gets important to me. And I don't know if it's a bad thing for me to say this as a CPS, but what I believe is under the lens of mental health, the diagnoses that we have are all the labels that we get under the Western lens. I believe that in reality, and not to say that the label doesn't serve a purpose, because it tells us what we're dealing with and how to approach the person. You know, it's like a trigger warning. It just information is what it is. But I really believe that this, even in mental health and trauma, is the result of childhood trauma. I believe that it's so pervasive in all of these different aspects of our life. I'm, through working through the state, working for the state and sitting in on conferences, learning that there's even discussion going on that, even conditions like schizophrenia, is not necessarily a real thing, that psychosis is really driven from trauma. And that really comes from being exposed to these heavy traumatic experiences at such a young age when your brain is in the process of being developed. How does a child's mind, when you can't understand what you're even experiencing, the split in the brain? And so to me, it makes very clear sense how someone can develop multiple personalities.
We talked about that, the body's defense going, I've got to save her. Let me create another instance of her. We'll put this one on pause.
And you shut down in the state. That's how it shows up even in dissociation. It's the memory. People don't understand that traumatic memory is different. So memories that are trauma-based are different. There's a large part of my memory from my childhood that's missing, that's not continuous. I would have to go back in order to recount my childhood. I couldn't go back by age. I could go back and tell you where I lived. I could tell you maybe what school I was going to. And that's how I could maybe draw the points. Because for me, I'm certain there's a part of me that escaped.
Yeah.
And I'm not connected to that part. To me, this is what this healing journey is for. It's about soul retrieval, reconnecting to the inner parts of me that left when it was unsafe.
Speaking of that, in the book, the very last essay is Accepting the Shadow.
Yes.
Is that the work you were referring to?
It's a part of the work. It's been a lot, honestly. I mean, my God, it's been a lot. First, I had to learn how to I had to acknowledge and accept that I wasn't even in touch with my inner feelings. That was the biggest battle. Shout out to my life coach, Adrienne Kitchens. She, with her Feminine Power Life Coaching brand, not that she owns it, but I'm saying that she's a Feminine Power Life Coach. Through that process, it helped me get in touch with my intuition. It helped me reconnect with my feelings. We're so used to ignoring our feelings. I don't have time. That's really us suppressing our internal feelings and ignoring. Yes. So it's really been a journey, starting with that point, having to get to acknowledging the feelings, accepting the feelings, dealing with the root of where these feelings come from.
Yes.
And that's where I got to the shadow work, accepting that, all the experiences I had, the behaviors, the attitudes, everything in the way I was presenting is completely normal for someone that lived the life experiences that I had.
I want to read this that jumped out at me from this essay. Okay. And it relates to we were talking about earlier, semantics. Words are important.
Yes.
For me, I believe much of my shadow lived in my subconscious. I say that because as I started healing, I realized that I had a lot of difficulty naming my feelings about things. When my life coach would ask me about my feelings, I would explain my thoughts. This was how I began to understand there's a difference between what you think and what you feel. The mind is filtered by our beliefs and experiences, whereas our hearts tend to be touched in ways our minds would not allow. It was at that process that I understood for the first time how much my mind had lied to me. Carrying these negative ideals about life and other people led me to be angry and resentful of how life is in general. I felt trapped inside of that understanding until I gave myself permission to believe there is no box to think outside of at all. Just that, how freeing that is, and how that's going to resonate, male and female, across everyone. Because here is, as I call it, the sweet spot. Here is where our roads intersect. And we can stay there in that crossroads for a little bit and share energy and say, I understand. Yeah. That is a very, very powerful paragraph.
Thank you.
And you're doing the work. And what I appreciate about what I found in the mental health community among peers is that as we find out, we share. We don't keep it and save it up, because you led me to this place because my soul was seeking that. And that's how come we intersected, and then kind of took me along the ride. And here I am in this new place, picking up and learning about myself as you learn about yourself, you're sharing. And it's just a beautiful community, and we're just expanding it. We're just expanding it. But this book is, I want to almost say primer for anyone learning and coming to understand themselves. I say primer because through poetry, you take us through the different sections of your understanding and of your becoming.
Of my becoming, absolutely.
Lyrically and through essays. And but although it's, of course, your experience, it's general enough.
It's everybody.
That it's everybody.
Yeah. It's all of us. It's what I mean, when I talk about it on the show, about when I really realized, when it started when I was doing Hope Speaks, really understanding and listening to these stories after story after story, how many of us are standing shoulder to shoulder, struggling with the same thing in silence. So many of us are struggling with this childhood trauma. So many of us struggling with issues with our parents, issues with our children, issues with our self-esteem, issues with our body, on so many levels. We're challenged with these things about all of these responsibilities we have in life, but because we're conditioned in society to really suppress our feelings. You don't talk about your feelings, but you in your bag when you're talking about your feelings. Get out your bag. Stop being in your feelings. You're human beings. You're supposed to feel. That's what keeps you connected to your spirit. That's what keeps you connected and grounded by acknowledging those feelings and giving them honor and giving them voice and being able to cope with them effectively. We don't cope effectively with feelings because it's why we have so much conflict, because we can't cope and have critical conversations with people about difficult topics.
Right.
Because we're in avoidance mode all the time.
All the time. Yeah. This Western society, and it's not just Western society. There are other, as I get to know other people, it's in other societies. However, here, there's an obsession with being busy.
Yeah.
You must be busy.
Woo.
And something I read in a book that I own, about feelings buried alive, never die. We become human having, not human beings.
Yes, right.
And that's so I'm thankful for my mental health journey because I'm learning how to be a human being again, because we have to sit in those uncomfortable places.
Be present, because how are you going to, if you ignore that shadow will control you. Yeah. All those feelings that you're ignoring, it's just controlling you. And when you deal with it, it's hell. It's painful. It's hard.
Out of that.
It's hard to deal with.
Yeah.
But when you deal with it, guess what? You've dealt with it. It's over. It's not the same the next time it comes, because you've looked the big ugly monster in the face and said, you know what?
That was looming, that we were running from, that we were self-medicating, medicating with food. Yes. Like I said, being busy or sex or whatever it is that we that we were avoiding. Being a human being, and so we started being human having and accumulating all these relationships and things out of that space. So
then we don't recognize that we're creating the life experience because the attachments that we have are all attached to these unhealthy habits and ways of being that we've developed as survival mechanisms. But when we take the opportunity to allow ourselves to breathe, allow ourselves to acknowledge our pain, acknowledge ourselves to feel and be in touch with our bodies, then we're saying, okay, hey, this feels good. I'm giving my soul what my soul needs.
Yeah, we're starting to move.
We're starting to move. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now you protect that space. And now the attachments that you develop are different. And you understand attachments. It's not about relationships are not about ownership. It's about just being in the present. But you can't ever enjoy that if you're bound by the avoiding all of these feelings from the past.
I'm just letting the public know this is how we do all the time. Whether on the phone or in person, we go deep there. Just happen to have the mic. This being intentional around this book. I want to talk about how you set the book up. Turning to the table of contents, very, very well done.
Thank you.
So that we're actually getting your journey here.
Mm-hmm.
So you have categorized yourself. So your pen when I met you, your name was pen name was Rebel Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're working under the auspices of Heels with Her Pen.
Yeah, and so Heels with Her Pen is the brand, and that's the brand that Ty Davis. So now my writing material, as a part of my healing, my writing material is now being published under Ty Davis. Heels with Her Pen is the brand, right? That's my blog. I'm healing myself. I'm creating this space for other people who are in this place that want to have this conversation, to come in without judgment. And we can all do this together. We can write, we can chat, we can, and that's why, of course, my books are available on heelswithherpen.com as well as Amazon. But that's what Heels with Her Pen is about. It's really about sharing those messages and awareness about trauma, about self-acceptance, love, all of those things.
What's some of the feedback you've gotten
about the book? Oh, wow. I've been really blown away by some of the feedback I've gotten. And it's a beautiful thing because, like I said, I delivered an entire piece of my soul in that book. And that was a challenge, But some of the feedback I got is that it was an incredibly emotional journey. One friend said that he read the book and it was like he could feel the emotions just leaping off the page. And it was interesting in the language that he used because he said he didn't feel like I was abusing him, but he said he could feel the abuse. Like he felt what it felt like to be abused, like it was happening to him.
So I think I was remiss in mentioning not only that you're a CPS, certified peer specialist, but you're a survivor of childhood trauma, PTSD,
CTPSD, complex PTSD. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And as well as depression, anxiety, and all the cousins and second cousins that go along with that. Okay.
Yeah, the cousins. I just put it under the bipolar 2 umbrella because I don't have full-blown manic episodes where I'll just, be wandering out the street naked.
Thankfully, yeah.
No, I don't have that because that is thankfully because I understand. I've seen that. I actually seen that on my way to work one day. A woman in the street, literally in the corner, Peachtree Industrial and Pleasant Hill, in busy morning traffic in her pajamas and slippers. And I called the police. Of course, several calls came in, and they went and got her and brought her to safety. So that's terrifying.
It is.
I'm grateful that I don't have that, but more hypomanic, where I just have periods where I don't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I can become quite a bit of a chatterbox, have racing thoughts, things of that nature. But even in that, I just really believe that's just trauma. It's just how my mind coped and adjusted.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But what a beautiful mind it is. I've seen this woman do more with a piece of mind than I've seen folks do with their whole mind. With their whole mind. You're just amazing. And going back to something you said, the reference you gave me for a food feedback was a he. So you're telling me, because I've read some of the poems, I've seen you perform them live, and you are a lover of our Black men, but you come swinging. She's tiny, y'all, but she's powerful. Her words hit like Muhammad Ali's 1-2 combination. And males are receiving this They're understanding.
Yes, and that is actually, and another one of my friends from college is reading it, and he's been telling me, he told me the book hasn't left his side since it's been delivered, and he's just been absorbing it in deep bits, because I tell him practice self-care, because again, I'm taking you on this journey, and that's funny because you mentioned that, because I know how I start out. This book really explains a part of this healing journey. Rebel Queen is how I came out as a poet, and she was angry. Mm-hmm. She was she had to go through this journey. But then, the other parts of me, the activist, the podcaster, I need to merge all of this and really just be one person. Mm-hmm. So it starts out with, the trials of becoming, and I kind of go over what it was like. You don't know that having kids is a trigger when you have PTSD, but just so that y'all know, when y'all have PTSD, having children can be a trigger. Wow. And especially because it was a critical. I spent the last 4 months of my pregnancy on bed rest, so it was critical preterm. So that was just traumatic in itself. So it can create all of these things in you. So that's why I kind of went through this period where it awakened something in me, and I didn't know what it was, but definitely it happened being pregnant. Yeah. This fight. And so by the time I got to Rebel Queen, my subtitle is She Comes Out Swinging, because I was in protection mode of this Black child from the 4th grade on. I'm in protection mode for myself. I'm a single parent. I'm swinging, and I'm disconnected from my internal self. Still a survivor, but still in victimhood. Yeah. I hadn't done the work. I sought my answers in other people. Yeah. Because I was not connected to my own intuitive abilities.
I gotta say at this point, getting to know people in recovery, mental health, as well as substance abuse, addiction, mm-hmm. Several of the men and women that I've gotten to know and have conversations with, they speak consistently of what brought them back. Yes. And I'm telling you, almost every time it was a child. It was their children. They mothers that roused themselves up mm-hmm. from addiction for their child. Fathers went through the fire mm-hmm. so they could be a man to their wife, and
that's right,
and
father to their children,
the father they never had.
That's right.
So that's why I respect the journey.
That's right.
I respect the journey, because sometimes we don't have a pattern. We got this mishmash of something, fragments of feelings and thoughts, and now we're in the shoes, and we got to be mom and daddy from broken pieces. Where's our example? Mm-hmm. But it's in you.
It's in you.
And in the process of recovery, you pulling all the pieces together, yes. Communicating it well. Yes. I highly recommend this book for anyone who wants to understand what it must be like to deal with the albatross, the cross to carry.
Oh, the albatross wrapped around your neck, honey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I recommend this for anyone who is a parent. I recommend this for someone who's seeking to understand the African American female mind, the trauma mind, and listen and read this Sensitive Soul's work. Speak candidly about love, about relationship, about her son, this beautiful indigo child, and truly get to understand Ty Davis from this beautiful place. And you can get your copy right now
at www.healswithherpen.com, or you can go to Amazon and search Mind Funk times 21.
Get your Mind Funk.
Yeah, get your Mind Funk. Now, books that come, they are available on my site. You can order an autographed copy from Heals with Her Pen. So that's the distinction. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the honor.
I thank you for holding this space with me. I'm here because, again, I remember how we met when I launched Black Greek Speak back in 2016, and M. Love showed up as a volunteer. I didn't know her or Marilyn from Can of Paint. Frank just said, we need you to show up, and she showed up.
That was a huge start to my journey to recovery, and understanding that what I was going through had a name, there was language associated with it, there was a community created. It was just me, myself, and I, and a few straggling friends. And so this woman embodies what community means to me. And we are together building a community of people who already are. They're just looking for other people to connect with so we can all be together.
Just be.
That's it.
Be one in nature.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Listen, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Again, I extend my gratitude. Many thanks to you. I extend many thanks to you, M. Love, Ashe. This is cooperative economics. This is cooperation. This is what I do at Boasso Black Media. So remember, Boasso is the business, Official DFD, and Hills with Her Pen are the brands. And before I leave, I'll say my final words to you is to be intentional with your plans and manifest your best. Ashe, y'all.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our show. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. at OfficialDofD.com. Follow us on social media at OfficialDofD. Your dynamic, your dialogue. Come get some.